Hello to everybody who's coming in. My name is Mariah Scott, and I am a representative of Be Social in Charlotte, in the Charlotte, North Carolina location. And this is Pain is Growth 2, the meaning behind the lens, where myself, Tyler, Justin, and Anthony Andrews will all be having a conversation about men, mental health, and the inspiration behind the Pain is Growth 2, which was an exhibit that Tyler and Justin created and curated together at at an exhibit earlier this month. So we'll be having a conversation about just all things art, men, and mental health. So as we talk and chat, if you guys have questions that y'all want to put in the chat or comments, you're welcome to do that. But without further ado, I'm going to let Tyler, Justin, and Anthony go ahead and just introduce yourselves, tell us a little about yourselves, and then we can go from there. So, anybody who wants to start, I won't be the teacher and cherry pick, but y'all go ahead and introduce yourselves.
My name is Tyler. Creative here in Charlotte. I was about to say photographer, but do a lot of things here. Formerly with Be Social, used to run a lot of the edit and chill events.
Yes.
That's about me. Hopefully we can get those going back again.
Yes.
Cool. Justin Hicks, multifaceted creative as well, freelance illustrator, content creator with Edit and Chill, obviously business partner with Tyler, and then co-curator at 989 Studio Gallery.
And I am Anthony Andrews. I am a licensed professional counselor here in the Charlotte area. So I have a practice here within the Charlotte area, Andrews Counseling and Consulting. And I'm glad to be here. So I specialize in trauma-informed care, addictions as well. So I'm ready to have a good conversation and see this art come to life. So I'm glad to be here.
Well, again, thank you to Tyler, Justin, and Anthony for being here. Thank you guys, all of y'all who decided to come and pop in. And just want to get started with just talking about the Pain is Growth 2 art exhibit in general. When you were just creating this photography and creating these pieces, did you know that you were creating this for this specific event, or were you just kind of creating from a specific emotional place and that came after?
Well, yeah. So to answer your question, I guess the quick answer is no. That entire exhibit was compromised of like just about everything that kind of happened in my life, just as a young Black man. So I looked at it as it's like a series of traumatic events. I didn't necessarily, quote unquote, realize what I was doing until last year. So that was 2020 when everything, I don't want to say clicked, but that was almost, I guess, like my breaking point in a way. But it was something I'd always been doing. So like I never realized photography was kind of like my outlet. I've been shooting since high school. But it wasn't until I became really intentional with what I was doing that it turned into, I guess, an exhibit. And even then, it wasn't necessarily like treated as a show. It kind of just went from, I also write poetry as well. So it just went from me just reflecting one night, looking at just one of the lines that I had. And then I shared it with my good brother, Justin. And I was like, hey, I think I might want to do something with this. And it was a weird journey following that, but that's kind of how it all came together.
Yeah. And once you began to see how everything was, blooming into this exhibit, how did you and Justin kind of come across each other?
I'll let Justin chime in too. I mean, we had always been talking. He actually had what was called Building a Table, that series that we're now starting to run through Edit and Chill. So one, he's in my chapter of the fraternity, but we had always just chopped it up. I was actually trying to help him build out that vision. And I don't necessarily know how I came about just sharing with him that one line, but we just kind of ran with it and just kept going.
Yeah. Justin, what was that like for you? Did you, how did you feel when this project came about? Like when he brought this to you, what was going through your mind?
Well, for one, I was honestly just super honored that he would be able to open up to me in such a short amount of time. Going from having him as a guest on Building the Table, just as a fellow creative, to speak about just the journey and the process of what that entails. But seeing him as we, ventured into a business partnership together and continued to build, it really became a genuine brotherhood. And so to see him just like open up to me about certain things, and now he wanted to make these experiences and turn it into something, and turn it into an experience. I was really like excited. And it's funny too, because at the same time, the way things lined up, I was also like, just going through Instagram, scrolling through IG, and I saw the connection with 989. I had saw that they just released the Black Boy exhibition, and I saw like showcase the work. It was literally on my Explore page. So I didn't know Joanne Arthur Rogers prior to it all, but in between that time of him, talking about wanting to make this into, some sort of showcase. He always says like, this is not no exhibition. This is like a release. But I'm like, you know what? Like I'll take that curator role and do what I got to do. And we'll put it in a space. But having that relationship manifest with 989, it was just like in perfect alignment, the way things lined up. So, but yeah, I mean, it's for one, to be working together as, creatives and continuing to build projects out, and then stripping that back and making it an entirely different, like vulnerable experience. We got a chance to know each other in depth, throughout this entire process of us literally like linking up pretty much every single day leading up to the show. If we weren't like face to face, we were on the phone, we were talking, and this wasn't just for the sake of the show and to build it and get it off the ground, but also just like regular check-ins, like how are you doing, like what's been going on. So to see, where our relationship is now from where it's become, it's night and day.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like, I attended another mental health conversation that was here on Be Social with some of our employees out in Tampa, and they were talking about the different things that they have going on when it comes to building organic friendships between men, and how it could either be something that happens just like a click, or something that you kind of teeter into little by little. So I love that, obviously it sounds like you both are kind of like kindred spirits, and the ability for you guys to just click and be able to just bond and share so quickly in that way is pretty cool. I did want to ask you, Tyler, about Pain is Growth too. What was the most difficult part, and the best and the most difficult or challenging part about that process?
I don't know if I have a best part, but I'd say like the most surprising part, or not even surprising, I guess to your point, like the most challenging thing for me was when it was actually like an opening night, because it was, where everyone would see photos, frames on a wall. That's literally like my life. So like doing various tours of people just asking questions, it's no like nothing wrong or nothing like bad to them, but as they ask different questions, they're literally asking like questions about triggering things, or like different just scenarios and situations that happened in my life before. So that was a part that I had expected, but I took for granted, because it was like all of that was like very, very real. So even to the point of like there's like a healing portion, like that part is still like in progress. So asking someone that's in the progress or in the process of healing something about something that they're healing from is very different from asking like a completely healed person.
Yeah.
What does this mean? So it was different.
Yeah.
But And then the best thing, or maybe a thing that I'm happy about, is more so just like the impact portion of it all. So I think there was a minority mentoring organization that was able to come by, and they brought a bunch of just young Black men, young Black boys to come through. And there's a portion of the exhibit, I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't been yet, but there's like a portion of that whole experience to where you can, it says release your pain on the mattress, but you can you write an affirmation, how you're feeling. You're literally just releasing something, just in the form of words or art on the mattress. But there's also a question on the wall that asks, how do you heal? It's just a journal. And over the course of every single tour, all 3 opening nights, a lot of people were just filling that book up with how they heal. Some people didn't know, and they would write that. But having the young Black boys flip through that, because I was creating this from stuff that I didn't have. Like I never asked anyone how to heal as a young Black man. I didn't talk to my pops about how to heal, you know what I'm saying? So providing that for them was a highlight for me.
Wow, that's really powerful. I think, man, that makes me want to ask Tony some questions. And it also makes me want to ask all of you some questions, really, just about that experience. But before I bring Tony into the conversation, Justin, what was that like, just talking about what Tyler was mentioning, opening night? You were there at the show. Obviously, you helped curate it. What was that experience? Did you experience that same kind of pride and appreciation that Tyler was experiencing?
It was a mix of emotions. I think the opening night on Friday, I just wanted to make sure that everything was kind of put in place, because being a curator, being a co-curator, it's like you're responsible for making sure the show is, as immersive as possible for the audience and for people that are attending. And so first couple hours for me, that Friday, it was honestly hard for me to be present. I was more so focused on the analytics of things and how things looked, and making sure like the vinyl was clean on the walls, like just little small details. And then throughout the night, as more people started to show up, it was just really, really amazing to see just how just vulnerable people got and started to express themselves, like coming up to me and Tyler and talking to us about just different experiences that they had. I actually had a conversation on Saturday's night, just about this guy that was just going through some stuff and just sharing very like deep, heartfelt, traumatic things that happened in his life. This is a grown Black man talking to me. I don't know him at all. I've never met him in my life. And to see that, that vulnerability in that moment, it was truly amazing, and then to be able to see Tyler, going through his transformation. It's almost like watching like a literal transformation from kind of being, in this darker place in the beginning, and us like building this out to scale, and then just the light come back into his eyes, and like seeing like the sense of peace that came over him throughout those nights. For me, it just brought me joy to see my brother happy, and just genuinely kind of like he got that release, we were able to pull it off. So that was probably one of the most rewarding experiences. And obviously like the Male's Place, which was super crazy, just being able to see just young Black men coming in and, sharing their experiences. And there was one point where we were up in the healing room and, just two kids, just kind of talking about their interpretation of a specific piece, and just to see the conversations and the dialogue that it sparked, not just around mental health, but, around healing, was extremely rewarding to see. So.
Man, that's so powerful. It just makes me think of a few things between some of the things that both you and Tyler were saying. The first thing that I thought about was I didn't even consider what that must have been like for you, Tyler, when you're talking about, there's some things that might have, some art pieces that may have been coming from your past, but there are some things about that exhibit or within that exhibit that you're still processing through or in the process of healing, right? Right here, right now. And there's like a sensitivity that I didn't even consider, I mean, even it's all in the name, right? But people are just so excited. Number one, people are excited to just be somewhere out that's not in the house because the pandemic. So just the excitement, and we're just extra like woo woo and just sensory overload. But to just think about, we don't necessarily always consider like, man, this is an intense moment. And so shout out to you for even bracing through that. But I never even considered that. But there was something that you said about, I was doing this because I needed this. I could have used this when I was younger. And this is what I wanted to chime in with Anthony, of course, as far as, like the process of, I've been learning and hearing a lot about shadow work and child, kind of consulting your inner child and things like that. What do you guys think about how maybe some of the things that some of the traumas or things that we might have suffered from in the past, like how that kind of plays out in our adulthood and things like that? Do you guys experience that often, or just, do you find yourself kind of trying to be something for a group of people or younger people that you didn't have when you were younger?
Right. Yeah. So I think it's a heavy conversation, and it's a lot that it gets unpacked with it. Even from just hearing, Tyler and Justin, so many follow up questions I may want to ask, and that's just the therapist in me that wants to, even ask more about, some of the things that was said. But what I come to know that is that the photography, I'll actually shoot myself. Have been for about 3 years now. And I used to go and say, well, if I go to different countries and shoot and take drone shots of like the oceans, whatever, I wanted to have my office set up of this, the art that I've shot around me. But even the individuals that I shoot, I realized that there's a timestamp on each of those pictures. When you're looking in somebody's eyes, what was that person going through? What does that mean to that person at that time? Just as similar as music has a timestamp, photography does as well. So as music can take you back, photography can take you back as well. So to hear that, you're getting that trauma and that pain out through the form of art, although it can be triggering, it's still coming out, right? So, and that's the thing. You don't want to suppress any of those emotions, any of those feelings inside. It has to be released. And people talk about PTSD and trauma and why night terrors happen, and everything that happens in the unconscious comes out at night, because when people are asleep in the unconscious, those things are going to come out either one way or another. So you're going to get them out yourself, or they're going to come out, unwillingly in different forms. I think childhood trauma is one of the big things that I see in my office every day, or virtually now every day. It definitely plays a toll into who we are as adults. It doesn't have to be, but it does. And I think we carry that a lot because we don't unpack that trauma. And the key to that is to not avoid the trauma. There's a saying that we always use, you have to acknowledge the trauma, wave at it as if it's passing by, and acknowledge it and let it move on. But trauma may not be something that you ever get over, and people want you to get over things. It may not be something you ever get over, but how you emotionally respond to it determines how you're handling that traumatic event. So I think that as men specifically, we were told certain ways how to handle trauma. As Black men, we probably were told, a lot of us were told, that you're not supposed to talk about certain things in fear of either being weak, in fear of even being judged, embarrassment to yourself or the family, and judgment. But I think now, as counseling is becoming normalized and even more trendy, it has its advantages, that people are seeking therapy and realizing that, I can't carry this burden on me for too much longer. It's kind of like being in a prison cell and the door is open and you're just sitting there. You're just like literally sitting in the prison cell. Don't want to walk out because you're fear what may be on the outside, and you're putting those shackles on you and you're carrying them around, but you're actually free if you just walk outside. But a lot of people don't know how to actually exit the door. So I applaud you brothers for even doing that and making sure that you're getting that outlet. And now the next step is, of course, making sure we process all of that in the meantime. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. No, keep going, Tyler. I was just saying thank you.
No, you're fine. I mean, I was agreeing with his point as well. It actually made me think about. I had questions for you, but I just going back to like your original question, Mariah. That kind of just goes to like the title. It was just my perception of pain per se or traumatic situations. Um, I can kind of, I can kind of like pride myself on being someone that can tie back certain things. I'm not necessarily going to ignore it, but I would, I can say, hey, this might be a trigger because I'm coming from a divorced family, XYZ. So I'm aware, like conscious of certain things. Um, but like the pivotal point in the actual like exhibit was more so like the title came because pain actually had a purpose. I kind of looked at everything I'd been through. I would somewhat acknowledge it and then I just keep it pushing. So I would just look at pain or something unfortunate, um, something that just happened I didn't agree with or that was out of my control as something else to get through. And to Anthony's point, I just wouldn't necessarily unpack it and I just keep it stepping. Strong Black man, just keep it moving, whatever, you'll get through it at the end. But I think something that we often don't realize is that stuff will actually like add up. It'll start packing up until you can't necessarily handle it anymore. You can't necessarily like run away from whatever you're just withholding. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you might not even think you're running away from something until you just get hit with, I don't know, that one thing that just shakes you up. So yeah, to your point, I think that's really huge. But I was also gonna try and ask you about, I think it is becoming normalized and that's good within just mental health, Black men. But then you also said trending too, and it's like bittersweet to me because I do believe it's that trendy part lets people acknowledge it or do it for the sake of it being a trend, but not necessarily, doing it all the way, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. So, and I agree with you because when it became trendy, I remember when Charlemagne started getting real big with mental health, and he wrote his book Anxiety Shook Ones. Everybody started pouring in. It's like, oh man, everybody has a therapist. Everybody's doing this and that. I said, well, you know what? It is getting trendy, and I hate the word trendy. But then I had to think about it as a therapist. More people were just getting in the door. So then I said, well, now it's up to the therapist to say, how can I get this person to stay and to continue to unpack that trauma? Before it even became trendy or whatever, it was even difficult to get, especially Black men, even into the door, right? So by you coming on here and talking about for me not even knowing you, and the first few words that I wrote down from hearing you guys speak, it was vulnerability. Two brothers saying that they were vulnerable with each other, unpacking these things. This is lingo now that wasn't really used a few years ago, where two people can be vulnerable with each other. Two people can have a conversation, learn how to build relationships in a healthy manner. You know what I mean? So as it becomes trendy, if somebody comes one time, that's a chance to either save a life, to heal a family, to unpack some stuff because you know what, and I'm speaking from experience because when I was going through my master's program and my doctorate program, they require us to go to counseling. And I remember being in my master's program, I was like, man, why am I going to I don't have to go to counseling. I said, how ignorant do I sound to say that I want to sit here and counsel people for a living and not go to counseling myself? And when I went, I was resistant at first. But when I walked out, it was like really cliche. I was like, man, the sun is brighter. It feels better. I feel lighter just because he was able at that time to unpack things that I wasn't even aware of. And you start thinking, well, who are the people around me? Who is my circle? How did they get here? What does that mean for me? And I remember one story vividly about, and I bring this up a lot. I had a friend named Justin growing up, and Justin's dad was our baseball coach. And every time we'll get home, just like in middle school, every time we'll get home, Justin's dad will help me swing because I wasn't good at the time of even swinging the bat. I said, well, damn. I said, my dad has never done this. My dad wasn't in the house, so he has never done this. But when I went to Justin's home, it looked like this is what a family may have looked like. Oh, wow. Dad teaching him how to swing a bat. I remember that moment for the rest of my life. And I talk about it often because just that moment right there was a feeling that I had to unpack as a man years later. about a moment when I was in sixth, seventh grade, and being vulnerable enough to talk about stuff like that in that absence or whatever. It's not like a boohoo story, but it's like, let me unpack the effects of my childhood on who I am now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as it is trendy, I want people. It's time we have to encourage each other to continue to do the work, not just go just to put it on Instagram. Instead,
Right.
you had a session today, but continuously come back and let's try to make it happen. We do what we want to do, so we have to make that happen.
I mean, you hit on a big point too that I also learned. I forgot. I'm trying to remember his name. Renshawn Miller. You've heard of that?
Right. Yeah.
Seeing his, I believe I saw like a interview with him on, I think it was the Breakfast Club. But a big point that you kind of uncovered as well is like normalizing it to the point that you don't necessarily need to go to therapy, counseling, talk to somebody. If you don't have to go through something terrible to do that. I think that was another big thing I had to realize as well. So like when someone would be like, yeah, I'm going to therapy, I'm doing this, it's like, yo, I don't need to go. I'm saying I can, you feel like you can do everything yourself. Like, yeah, I know that's a trigger, or I know this happened and this happened. But like you said, you'll uncover things that you didn't necessarily know, uncover certain ways that you think because of certain things. It's not necessarily all bad. It's more so, just like you go to the gym for, physical fitness, it's the same thing for your mind. Your mind is a muscle as well.
The exact same thing. You're right. Mental fitness. And I make sure I go at least once a month from what Justin said earlier. He mentioned, I don't know if you remember, he mentioned check-in. He said, I call them check-in. And that's what it is. I actually call them oil changes. Like, you got to get oil. No, I don't care if you got a brand new car outside, an old car outside, both of them cars are going to need oil changes, and you have to get checked in. Because if you don't, you're going to keep going. And I think that's how we are as Black men. We've been conditioned to keep pushing, keep fighting. One more, keep going. And while that can be, a good idea in some facets of your life, but in some places, man, you got to sit down. You got to unpack that stuff, man. You've been carrying on along stuff for the last 20 years of your life. Then you're meeting and you're in relationships with other people and friendships and intimate relationships, and you're just dumping all of that stuff onto everyone. And you get to a point where you're building up so much, and it's like that soda can that you then shook up. It's going to explode eventually, and a lot of people find themselves uncontrollably crying, and they don't know why. They can't identify it. You can't identify it because so much emotion built up. You can't even put you can't even identify exactly what it is that's making you feel this way, because there's so much that you've done suppressed.
Yeah, and that was huge too. Like for me, going back to what Tyler was saying about feeling like you have to go to therapy if there's like some sort of like issue or some sort of problem. So I'd always personally associated like therapy with, like, oh, there had to be something like wrong. Like I was, going through something like devastating or something traumatic or whatever. And I found myself constantly looking back at my life and I feel like I'm good for the most part. Like I feel like I'm just, I'm doing the right things, correctly. And then I realized like I struggle with, dealing with being a perfectionist, because it goes back to like 10, 15 years ago, just different things that I dealt with and struggled with, but I never would have been able to identify with that if I didn't like take ownership. And that's a huge thing too. I think it's so easy to talk about within the Black community, to talk about our accolades and our successes and the things that we're doing well, just as something to kind of like wear, and when it comes to the vulnerable things, the things that are difficult to talk about, to face and confront, it's a little quieter, and so I'm just extremely grateful for one, Tony, you having and building a platform to give, other people, especially, minority groups, opportunities to speak and opportunities to really like dive into that for themselves, because I feel like there's a lot of misinformation about it, from within our community and what we're fed.
It is. And then, and you can unpack that. And all of that is just historical and psychological trauma and psychological slavery that we still have here, where we were forced to kind of suppress every feeling that we had and continue that on. And what happens is that pass on to our children. So we wonder why we're why we're the way we are, because, our grandfather did this and his grandfather did that. And it was not intentionally done. but it just happens. And I think that, like I said, we have to normalize just going to talk to somebody about even the good things. And as I supervise some of the clinicians that's coming up, even in college now or whatever, I always challenge them. What do you do with a client that comes into your office and they had a great day? There's nothing wrong with them. They come in, you ask them what's been going on today. I had a great week. I had a great day. What do you do now as a therapist? And it's one of the most challenging things to do for someone who's been trained to only focus on bad things, like you guys were just saying. But no, you highlight the good things that's going on to your life too. And because if we change our mindset, we'll notice that a lot of things are actually going on good in our lives, but we harp on the negative things, and it takes over our day. And that's when you start diving into that anxiety, that depression, that fear, that isolation, and you will be more alone than you think you are, especially in this era of COVID-19. So, I can go on for days about that, but I think that you guys, are the start of doing things like that, having a conversation with each other. And once two people see you, or one person see you having a conversation, using the words like vulnerability and building relationships and going to go see a therapist, the person's going to get home and say, you know what? Or they're going to call you and text you and say, well, who's your therapist? They may not get that person, but and look how many people you are. Like if it's like the guy in the Chick-fil-A line that buys someone's meal, and everybody behind them start buying everybody's meal. You know what I mean? It just keeps going. It just keeps going. So we have to continue to push it. We're the examples.
Yeah, and Anthony, something that you just said that I had to. Well, my name's Eric, by the way, everyone. So yeah, I something that you said about the isolation. That's something that I had to learn, that I had to pull forward, or like you guys say, unpack during COVID-19. I mean, you harp on that negative energy for some reason, just forget about all the good. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that I guess that's where you can have anxiety, have anger, other balled up emotions. Then out of nowhere, you just start raging. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's something that I had to, I don't really look at it like a flaw. It's just something that's in my character that just needs a little tweaking. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can do everything better. You can always smile better. You can always be more generous. You can always be more of a personable person. Everything can do adjusting because you get older. Everything you have to grow. If you're not growing, then you're stagnant, right? So, I mean, every piece of me, I feel like needs a little adjustment. I'm 32 now. I can't be wilding out over little things like I'm 18. You know what I'm saying? Like, but so I guess that's one of the mental growths I would say that I finally accomplished during the pandemic, because if I never would have seen it, you never know, like, a lot of people get lucky and get upset and, go crazy, but don't go to jail. But there's a lot of people that don't get lucky, that don't, that didn't have a chance, that didn't, just had one little bad moment and did something crazy, and now they're locked up for it, So I definitely just never wanted to be one of those people, you catch your blessings, what I'm saying? I'm just like, but I've always dealt with some type of anger, but now I learn how to talk it out, communicate with it, you know what I'm saying? But if COVID didn't happen, I wouldn't have had that chance to actually sit down and think and really harness that,
Right.
Thank you for sharing that, Eric.
Yes.
And I'm really appreciative. I'm really appreciative of all of this dialogue, for real. I think all of you guys made a lot of good points. What you were explaining, Tony, well, all of you really, from just y'all talking about the methods into which you just get about kind of getting to a point where you do want to, analyze your feelings or just what you have going on. I know when I started therapy when I was younger, they talked a lot about coping skills and like the things that you do to kind of get yourself, some sort of peace or just recenter yourself and get a little bit more grounded. And I wanted to ask you all, what are some things that you do to kind of bring you back your peace? And before that, Anthony, do you have anything to add as far as your experience, your expertise, and your knowledge on like coping skills and things like that when it comes to, you know, us getting back to our peace?
Right. Yeah. So, here's another point too. I'm as big as advocate I am for therapy. I realize that some people will be resistant and they may not feel like they need to go to therapy right off. And so we always want to utilize coping skills, or let people know what coping skills actually are and what they can do, because it may even save you a visit to the therapy office. And of course, if you don't want to go, or you don't have time to go, or you can't afford to go, something just as meditating. I know that's something we don't do a lot as men. I try to get up at 5 in the morning, make sure that I start my day off with some form of meditation, 15 minutes, and before I go to bed, because I was going to bed with so many racing thoughts and waking up with so many racing thoughts, checking my email, what I got to do today, what I got to do today. And it's just, you're scrambling, or especially like I remember just getting out of college and not knowing exactly where I wanted to be, and thinking, I remember, you guys can respect this. I remember my dean of pledges, he had went off and he just did his thing. And he went to Bank of America, started working at this great job. And so I brought my line over afterwards, and I'm like, man, I want my young boys to look at me like that. You know what I mean? And I got off at first, and I couldn't find a job. I wasn't making any money at all. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I want to go back to college. And I was like, oh man, so many people are looking at me. I'm embarrassing my people, and this, I'm embarrassed myself. And I didn't know how to cope. So you just bury that all within. I didn't know how to just breathe, how much focusing on my breathing could actually really help me. Talking out with my friends could actually really help me. We have a weekly call, my Line Brothers Now, that we talk about things, and we're finding out things from our Line Brothers 10 years ago that they were going through that we never even talked about, because nobody talked about their feelings. Nobody just had that simple conversation to really cope with it that way. So it's just amazing how much we can just bottle in and just keep in like that. So we have to utilize our support systems if we have them. We have to make sure that we are utilizing breathing and meditation. And like you were saying, Eric, just a calm space. It doesn't have to really just always be isolation is a bad thing, but putting yourself in and detaching from social media, from phone calls, people who dump energy on you. You have to actually tell your friends as well. It's really respectful to say, hey, are you having a bad day today before I dump my shitty day on you? Is it a good idea for me to even have this conversation with you right now? Because you may be in a triggering place right now. And if a friend comes and dump everything onto you, now you got a worse day than you already did. So being more mindful about how we're interacting with the people and just checking in on them. So support systems, making sure that you're being mindful, and some kind of form of just clearing your head. You got two types of people. People that say, I'm going out for a run to lose weight, or some people say, I'm just going out for a run to clear my head. That person that says they're going out for a run to clear their head, they're utilizing that as a coping mechanism. They're realizing that doing something like this is going to help my mind become clear. We have to start speaking in that mindset to know that we're being intentional, is what I'm saying, about making sure that our mental health is okay. Not just our physical, our mental as well.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what you just said, that's one of the things I do, just as a more of a routine. It started as a coping mechanism, but I didn't look at it that way. But biking and skateboarding,
right?
That's definitely, because you have to really focus on what you're doing, your breathing and things like that during those type of activities, and you're outside and you kind of just forget about life, because nature, just hearing nature, just automatically just can calm me down. It's crazy. Even if just on a good day, just something that you just start picking up, you're just like, what, I want to go for a bike ride. It's beautiful today. Or yeah, I want to go, since it rained, like today in Atlanta, it rained. So I had to get on my bike. Can't skateboard when it's raining. It's going to tear all your stuff on your skateboard eventually. So, but yeah, so it just always something to do. What's that now?
No, I said so true, so true. I was agreeing with you. Tyler and Justin, what do you guys do for your coping skills? Along with Eric said he bikes and skateboards, which is really, really good. I do the same thing. I have a longboard.
Awesome.
Yes. But Justin and Tyler, what are some things that you guys do for your coping skills to deal with your things?
Kind of like Anthony said, I also do meditating as well. And I think for me, it was realizing that like meditating can be different for like different people. I remember like younger me just thought meditating was just sitting down quietly, I don't know, thinking about nothing, which to an extent that might be someone else's meditation. But for me, I kind of made it fit me. So I still use art. I do photo walks actually. So sometimes I'm walking around, sometimes it's a night drive, but I like trying to explore and just find different spots that speak to me, or I'm just exploring and I just take my camera with me. That's probably one of my favorite things to do as far as meditation is concerned. I also wanted to kind of piggyback off what Anthony said too, of just like support systems. I think it's also important to be intentional with, building that support system as well, or realizing that sometimes everything that deems itself as support isn't necessarily, it might not be what you think is a support system. And hopefully that makes sense as well. So just identifying and having those people within your corner and actually making sure that they fit within your realm of support. I think that's also big.
Yeah, I think for me, being an illustrator, just being able to like draw and illustrate, um, whatever it is that I'm like going through, whether it's, I'm going through something where I'm like just in pain or struggling with something like that, like actually like putting it on the canvas and like illustrating it out. And then also too, going to the gym. I'm like really avid into fitness. I was actually a personal trainer back in college. So that's something that's kind of just stuck with me and maintained with me. It's just that way of like just release, just be able to get out and, to do that cardio or to lift those weights or whatever. Just kind of feeling like replenished afterwards. And then, meditation, I actually just started recently, like tapping into meditation because it's something that's is very new. I'm a firm believer in like prayer and like faith. And so that was something that I'd always like was accustomed to. But in terms of actually like just being present and like being still, I'm very like go, go, go. So it's so easy to get wrapped up in this mindset of I have to be doing something. And if I'm not doing something, it's like I'm stagnant or I'm slacking or I'm falling back. And but learning how to just take out, 15, 20 minutes of my day just to exist, to breathe, to acknowledge like that things are going to be good and just continuing to move in the direction that I'm called to move in. Like Tyler was saying too, having those support systems, one of my love languages is quality time. That's like one of my top ones. And so just being able to get that quality time in, whether it's a phone call, FaceTime, just time out to lunch with people that I know, are in my corner, that we can continue to grow and add value to each other's lives. Definitely continuing to stay connected and plugged in, because I mean, COVID definitely exposed a lot, just, from all of the restrictions and people kind of being limited to their own spaces. And so it definitely, it made me really think about being more intentional with the relationships and the people that I'm connecting with, and just the check-ins like we were talking about earlier.
So good. Tyler, what was among all the things that you were thinking when you were creating this exhibit, what was one of the takeaways that you wanted people to walk away with after seeing your exhibit?
That's a good question. It's like a million things kind of like clash as soon as you ask the question.
Any of them, all of them, they all survive.
One more so specifically to Black men, I want them to be, I think the big message that I had, there's one piece in the exhibit titled Glass. And it was more so based off of like a perspective of how certain people can feel to their to people that think that they're friends. It's a play on glass to where, you can feel like glass to someone else, but you can be completely transparent to another person that might not be as close as they might think. So again, like the message within that is more so I just want people to be more comfortable checking on other people. And if I were to draw like emphasis to a certain demographic, it's more so Black men. encouraging Black men to be more comfortable saying, like, it's okay to tell a brother that I love you, you know. And I find myself repeating that statement a lot whenever someone asks me, like, what message did you want to send? I think that's a very big one, because it's oftentimes we might have these like surface level relationships that we don't know that we have. So it's always going to be like, hey, what's good? How you doing? I'm good. Cool. And I'm on, you know, you're on with your day. But I've found I'm very, very like intentional with like the words that I say, or whenever I'm checking in with someone, you know, like Justin, you know, when we check in, it's more than a what's good, what's going on. It's like, yo, how's your mental? Or how's your heart today? Just being intentional every time you check in. And it's not a hope all is well. I need X, Y, Z, you know, 2 days after that. So I don't know. I think just adding more intention to all of our friendships, relationships, Black men, Black women, everyone. I think that's the biggest message I could send. And you never know what someone is going through, like, and you can be literally right beside them. Just be more cognizant of what's going on around you.
Hmm.
Powerful,
Ju-
man.
Very. Justin, you were, well, I'm sorry. Anthony, were you going to say something?
No, I wasn't. No, I was listening to Tyler, and I was just like I said, I was in awe of what he was saying, because I know the awkward feeling of when someone says I love you, and you at first until it becomes normal for you, you know, you have to really fight through the awkwardness and make it normal, you know. And I remember when me and my friends just first started doing it, it was like, oh man, it's a little awkward. But as you continue, you know, okay, well, no, we checking on you. We making sure you're all right. All right. And it's okay to say I love you, because that means you care about that person. And that stemmed for me from a long time ago, because my mom and I just started saying that we loved each other maybe 5 years ago. She said she raised 2 boys, and she never, you know, she wasn't, you know, she never did it for us. As a single mom, she never said it to us. So it was always awkward, but I would see everybody else saying it to their moms and their dads. And I'm like, oh man, that's really awkward. And I would just like, you know, shove it off. Not saying I wasn't wanting that. I didn't know how. And it was awkward for me.
Right.
So how do you do it at the age of, well, I'm 31 now. How do you do it at this point? Okay, well, you have to keep doing it. You have to keep doing it. And I always have one friend that calls me every day, and always tells me to get some rest. Make sure you get some rest. Those little things like that are small, but it lets people know that you care about them and you're checking on them and about their well-being, mental and physical. And you know, and tell somebody you love them. Why not? Because that's the first thing people wish when they're not here anymore, that they could have told somebody they love them. So why can't you do it now every day? So I was just in awe of that, man. So real powerful message.
No,
That's literally what I was going to say to Justin, as far as asking him if he shared that same sentiment that Tyler was explaining, as far as just, you know, the takeaway from the show, and even what you were talking about as far as people being more intentional with your relationships, especially how you guys were describing the ease that y'all experience with the friendship that you guys share. So I just wanted to hear what you had to say about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think for one, I was fortunate enough to like grow up in a household where saying I love you around the house was like common, you know. So I was just very like always been a relational person in the way I've been able to connect. And so me being able to connect with Tyler early on, I think a lot of it was I just respected him as a fellow creative. Like I looked up to him as like kind of like a big brother almost. And I'm actually the oldest in my family. So to have like an older brother, you know, doing it at a high level and really just trying to execute creatively, but also like being able to be vulnerable enough to like open up to me and like us really connect, was a really like, I don't know, I just cherished it. It was very, it was humbling, but it was also, I mean, it was crucial to my growth and development as well, because as we were building the show, we were both going through different things, just different things that we were processing and different battles that we had to fight. And in those battles, it's like I felt like I had like a warrior next to me, and we're going to battle, tackling, you know, not just the creative scene, but also like our mental, our spiritual, you know, our physical, in all avenues, you know. And so that experience as a whole was just so enlightening, because it helped me to really recognize like the people that are genuinely there for you, and that, you know, support systems, just how crucial they are, because even though like Tyler was showcasing a lot of his struggles and his traumas and things like that through this experience that we were able to create, you know, I was kind of going through my own battles as well, personally, and just dealing with my own stages of development, and just to be able to, it was like the same playing field. I feel like it's easy in, you know, not even just in like minority communities, but in general, to like look at just status or look at a certain like level that person's at, whether it's creatively, whether it's monetarily, whatever, and be like, oh, I can't talk to them. They're like at this point, or like, oh, like, you know, and it's not that. It's completely, all of that is far removed. So throughout this process, I learned a lot about how to be intentional as a creative with my story. That was huge. So, you know, seeing Tyler's story and seeing how it transcended, you know, all of the other stuff that was happening, and he was able to put it into a showcase that it translated for other people in different ways, shapes, or form. That was beautiful for me, because I was able to see like our stories genuinely do have impact. I feel like a lot of us feel like we have to have this kind of grandiose come up, or like this crazy, like, I don't know, just this, like this big moment for us, you know, like that we've arrived or we've made it. And it's like, no, like just your story in general, and the plights and the things you had to go through, and the victories that you've had, but also just like the truth in it. That's where value is. So overall, just an amazing experience.
Yeah, man, that's well said. You know what? You know, I realize people are attracted to trauma. In my work of doing trauma, people are attracted to trauma, and it may be attracted in different forms. Some people love hearing like a story of resilience. Some people are so fascinated with someone's own traumatic experience, they want to know more. Like watching a movie, and when you watch the movies and you're seeing the trauma in the movies, and you just keep watching, I remember I was working with counselors and therapists on Fort Bragg's base. And some of the military personnel used to always tell me that they didn't like talking to some of the therapists because they kept probing on the questions of the war stories, because they were so excited to hear about war stories like it was a movie. You know, people are attracted to trauma, but everybody is not attracted or in your best interest of making sure that you go get the healing. So if you're looking at somebody's artwork and you're seeing all this trauma, and you're seeing you're hearing your friend talk about their trauma, at what point did a friend say, hey, you may need to go unpack that trauma, because it's important. I don't want you just to lay in it forever. You know, I'm glad that it's out there, but I'm glad you're telling me, but there's nothing I can do for you unless you go do it for yourself, you know? So people are attracted to it. But the last thing I'll say about it is about the attraction piece is, because while you think you're in the traumatic thing alone, that you're just in this doing nothing, you're giving people hope that they can see you make it out of that. So, oh man, this person had a similar experience as I did. They're doing fine now. I may be able to be okay. They may not even realize that you're still in the process of healing, but just seeing you still up and breathing and hopeful at least gives them hope. So trauma is an interesting thing, and as more as I do it and get trained and continue just to counsel, I learn more about it every day, because everybody's story is so different. But like I said, the ultimate goal is to push for the healing of it. So we go back to support systems. Who's pushing you to make sure that you make that happen?
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, you know, they say trauma bonding, like that's a term that I've heard a lot. And even I think it just really pays to be intentional. Like Tyler was saying, it's so easy to just get caught in the day to day, the hey, how you doing? Good, you, and you're passing each other. You're not even stopping to actually look this person in the face and really be able to know, like, hey, how are you, and what's going on, and things like that. And even apart from the side of reviving that trauma, and like as far as people being dense and insensitive, I do think that, know it, knowing that people are, human, like being able to relate to other people as far as, hey, like this person is trying their best just like me. And so it makes you kind of have this sense of motivation, like you were saying, Tony. But even I think it even humanizes us even more sometimes, not necessarily just about the pain, but just to know, like, to see another side of a person. Like, I know for me, like, meeting Tyler at Be Social when he was doing the Edit and Chill events, one of the most popular events at the physical Be Social location, may I add. But Tyler always just came across as this professional, sweet spirit, like a very, like, not meek as in shy, but just, like if he has something to say, he'll say it. If you don't have anything to say, he's not going to say anything, and he's going to do his job, and he does it well. And he's very strategic and intentional. And it's always a joy. It's that after the first meeting Tyler, I was like, anything y'all want, the answer is yes. Like, it just immediate, just appreciating his energy and his personality. But I only saw, of course we have social media and things like that, but I only saw him, when it came to those events. So being able to reconnect with him, virtually, and to hear about this exhibit, it let me see him in another light. It was just like, wow, like, this person has a whole nother side to them. This person has other things going on, and it makes you appreciate. Of course, I appreciated what you were creating, but also it created another soft spot. Like, wow, like, he's out here trying to figure it out just like everybody else. And you never underestimate, because Tyler's a clean cut person. He's always, always presents himself well. He's just always a well-mannered person. And you never know that, someone who looks the way that he looks, you're like, wow, you never know that this person is going through all these other things. And so I really appreciated just even knowing about the backstory of Pain is Growth too, and to even, it just helped me see you in another light, and it helped me look through within myself, and also ask my other guy friends, be more intentional with checking in with them, because I think that there's this stigma not only for Black men, but how we kind of look to each other for the jobs or the roles that we're supposed to fulfill. And subconsciously, I think that we can see the men as these providers, they got it, and it's not always like that. And so it empowered and encouraged and inspired me to be even more intentional with my close guy friends. How are you doing? How are you? How's your mental? Is everything okay? And be honest. Hold that space for them to be honest. So, not to be long-winded, but I definitely wanted to say that I just really appreciate what you guys were saying, because I think it's so true, and I think it's so needed for men and Black men specifically to just open themselves up to, their only way out is the way through, to actually sit and heal through that. And that was the point that I wanted to make, as far as how y'all feel, you, Tony, Andrew, being a therapist, and then of course all of you, how do y'all feel about, the reality that healing isn't linear? Because sometimes we're good, and sometimes we can get into a dark space. Like, do you guys how do y'all feel about the process of healing, is essentially what I'm trying to ask you all.
Yeah, I didn't know if Tyler was about to pop in there. I know.
I had to think about it.
Right. Yeah, he a thoughtful dude. I can see his mind racing.
Yeah.
About to respond, but I think the process of it is not a fun process, and that's what people avoid it. You're not about to come into an office and here's the thing: people come into the office and they spend 10, 15 minutes holding back tears. Just let them go. Just let the tears go and let them fly, because it is going to be uncomfortable. It is going to be hard. It is going to be a lot, but the process is all about kind of like fighting through so we can get to the other side, to the light at the end of the tunnel. So the healing process, I think people get upset because it may not heal in one day. It's kind of like working out, like you were saying, Justin, and you're getting back on the scale and like, man, I ain't lose no pounds. It's like, I'm about to just give up. I've been running for a week. I ain't lost no weight, and people and it's just like that. So people want to see results instantly, but it's a process. And you may not notice that you're healing right off, but somebody around you, just like that person that may notice you lost a couple of pounds, may say, you know what, in that argument, you didn't really spaz like you usually do. Or, you actually been thinking, or you've been more abstract in your thinking lately. You know what I mean? So just anything, you'll start to see yourself make progress, but it is a healing journey. And I think people really forget about that journey piece of it. Like it's a journey. We may be here for a while. But the goal is to get better. So that's for me.
No, I think that's what I was thinking about. Like, that's the big thing, is just realizing healing is a process in itself. And you could honestly end there. So for me, like if you were in the actual like exhibit and you were to walk up through to the actual like healing room, you'll actually see on the wall that healing is an option. And then you also see on the other side saying claim your peace. So just from my personal experience, it was also realizing that healing, like you said, it's like you got to just walk outside and breathe. Like, you can do it. For me, it's just like, healing is an option. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to keep going through these cycles. It's not just another thing to go through. Stop, breathing, and embrace, and figure out what's actually going on. That's the first step. So once you actually realize it's an option, then you can execute the actions needed to heal. And as you said, it's a process, it's a journey, but you'll realize certain things that were triggers at one point might not be triggers anymore, or you can actually recognize what it is and move accordingly, really. And like you said, it all doesn't happen in a day, but realizing that it's an option, and you actually have to, that same energy that you put into maybe that negative thought, or maybe when that negative thought comes, that same type of energy can be put into claiming that peace as well. So whenever I had that mindset shift, it also became a little bit easier for my healing. I could call myself, like, I thought I was healing at one point, but then I was also still putting energy towards just those negative things I feel like everyone goes through whenever they're in their journey or process of healing. So you're working towards something, and then you just get some thought like, this isn't worth it, or something like that. But catching yourself in a moment and putting that same energy into claiming peace. So you replace that thought with, no, but this is actually a journey. I'm still taking steps forward into claiming my peace, or into gaining clarity. That is just as important, or actually better than, putting that energy into that negative thought as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm a visual person. So whenever I think about healing, I think about, or like picture, like going to like a massage therapist and having to get like knots worked out of your muscles, and like they're the kneading through your muscles, and you might find a knot here or not there, but it's a constant, and it doesn't feel good either. Like whenever you're grinding those knots out, like it's painful. Or like stretching after a workout, or using like the foam roller to like roll out your muscles and get that lactic acid out of your muscles. Like that's a painful kind of time. You can apply those same sort of principles to healing. Like it's a very painful process when you have to be in this like kind of self-reflective mode. It's like every single thing that I'm doing leading to this healing, I have to constantly look at myself in the mirror and look at, where I'm going, where I'm headed. I've been reading a lot of books about just the power of thought, and just how that is it's so pivotal to our day-to-day actions, and just our routines and our habits, and even our physical health too. Like how like your mental can affect like your physical body. Like that wasn't something that I was really even super aware of early on. And so just to be able to see that, and to see like how different forms of stressors and different, forms of pain really like affect us overall, and how it's necessary for us to take those steps. But it's like you were saying, Mariah, it's not this linear kind of like journey. I always look at it as it's almost like a what's it like the stock market. Like you, like it's like that's kind of like the trend of like a healing
Up
process.
and down.
Yeah, it's literally up and down, and it's some days are easier than others. But you know, even like with Tyler and being able to see the show come into fruition, it's like I know for a fact that he's still going through his healing journey. You know, it's not like the show is out, we're done, the release is over, boom, like he's healed, like magically. Like, no, there's still work to be done, both on his end and on mine, you know, as his brother, like making sure like I'm still reaching out, and then vice versa, like being open with him about what I'm going through too. But it's a constant like up and down, like winding road, if I could kind of describe it visually.
That's so good. Tony, did you have any questions for the boys, Justin and Tyler? And Tyler and Justin, did you guys have any questions for Tony? I wanted to open that up to y'all.
Yeah, I appreciate the ask. I'm intrigued by everything now. So now I gotta kind of dive into it. I gotta look at you guys' work. I gotta dive into it some more because now I'm interested to know more about your backstory and knowing. I just want to kind of know how does the creativity help you guys throwing something out there like that, like you did. Have you found it to be beneficial in your healing, or was it something that you felt like you were just, you just got to get it out, or was this intentional for your healing process? That's what I'm kind of interested in knowing.
I think that's actually a good segue, and it kind of still answers Mariah's question too. So just to be fully transparent, like there's a moment when like the show was actually supposed to be earlier than what it was. It was actually supposed to be January 15th. Technically earlier than that. But it got really close up to the event, probably 2 days before. And then Charlotte Mecklenburg, they released I think it was a directive that, everything had to shut down, only thing that was open was just like essential services per se. So I had to meditate that. This was two days before the event. So this was like you already let out all of your, announcements, whatever. I actually hit Justin, or Justin already knew. I was like, look, I'm gonna have to meditate on the 15th because I had unhealthily, if that's even a word, put so much into that show being like a release for me. That, I actually had to sit down and reflect. So it's like, look, whether the show happened or not, we could be locked down until March. What are you going to do internally? You know what I'm saying? It can't all be packed up into an exhibit, one frame. So that was one thing, proving like the point of healing is definitely not linear. Definitely like even after the show, there's just ups and downs. It's just making sure you don't get stuck in when you're having a moment. And then to answer your actual question about, was it intentional? Yes. Not the show element, but the art that was created, every single piece, that was just throughout my whole life, up until now. And that was just something I was doing, just every single time something happened. And then the show element, that just kind of came. But it was very, very intentional as far as getting that like release or just shooting, like that creative process. That was therapeutic for me, for every individual piece. If that answers the question.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Definitely didn't think a show was going to come out of that. That was different. That was very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's like, I don't know, you as like being the curator, you kind of like, you have this mindset of like, all right, this is how this is going to go. This is how we're going to structure it. This is how we're going to move. And then like the curveballs are thrown.
Right.
But I feel like within that, that's the perfect opportunity to like fall back, just like take that step back and be like, all right, where am I really at? And to be honestly like quite vulnerable with y'all. I think after the show, So after the opening, for me personally, because I am so like work driven, when everything was said and done and we finished, I kind of like went through like a very small state of like depression where I was like, dang, like this is an amazing experience. And it's like, you go from, since I'm such a relational person, you go from hitting up Tyler every single day and we're chopping and we're building this thing up. And it's like we build it and it's like we finished. And now it's like, okay, now I got to go back and do the inward work, which has been a process. It's been something that I'm working on right now. But yeah, I think it's super intentional with every single piece that was up there, from the specific words that we wanted to have, like little taglines that we had on the walls and vinyl that people could read and respond to as well. We wanted to make this the most interactive experience possible, a therapeutic experience, if anything, but also just more of a catalyst. If we were to really do anything, like this be a catalyst to spark more conversations around mental health, around like growing from your pain, around continuing to develop and do the work on yourself. So.
Yeah, this is good stuff, man. Yeah, we gotta definitely do more of this, because combining art with mental health is and I guess when I say this, because you type in like and everybody does it, they type in like depression, or you type in like black male depression, you'll see this picture of a guy just sitting there in a corner or something. And in every description of a mental health feeling is described by a picture, And the irony of that is sometimes it's not even about what that image may look like, because that person may feel completely different inside. So combining that artwork to mental health is just genius, man. I think a lot of people will relate. In art in every form, music, photography, everything, and just combining it with those emotions. Like I said at the beginning of this event, everything is kind of like time stamped in a sense, and people connect to whether it's art and plays and music and everything. And I was watching, I don't know if you guys watch, what is it, Malcolm and Marie on Netflix? Yeah. It's the story and about, him using her life as a story, and like, everything is just art. So it's just real dope to see. So yeah, man, it's good work, guys.
It's awesome.
Thank you guys so much for coming together for this conversation. I did want to leave room for you all to say your social media networks if you would like to share them, and Tyler and Justin to talk about how long this exhibit will be up, just in case people, including Tony, if you wanted to see it before before it's taken down. Did you guys have any information that you wanted to share so that people can follow you guys and keep up with you guys?
Go ahead, Justin. I'll let you go ahead with the announcement.
Yeah. So if you want to like follow as far as the show goes and seeing how long it's open, we're still doing private tours up until March 15th. So if you want to schedule out a tour, 9189 Studio Gallery. That's where you can go find us. My personal IG is jhicks_0113. So that's where I have like some of my content out there too. But yeah.
Oh, mine is at TYGC_. Not really on social media like that too much anymore, but I'll be back on eventually.
Okay. All right. Mine is Tony _Drew. I'll probably follow you guys before you follow me, because I gotta go check out your work now. I gotta go look at it. I'm very interested. But yeah, it's Tony __ Drew. But yeah, so I am interested in seeing all of this. So I'll probably definitely contact and connect with you guys to see how we can link.
So better.
I'm so appreciative of Justin and Tyler for you guys reaching out to me. I'm so glad that I was able to suggest a therapist that I felt that would be helpful to this conversation. I did not know that y'all were of the same frat, so that's cool.
That's crazy.
And and also that Tony is also a photographer and into the arts himself, so that even made this conversation even better. Thank you, Eric, and there are some other people that popped into our live on today. This conversation will be up on our website shortly, so make sure you follow everybody, follow the Be Social platform on Instagram, and also check in with our website for future events. I hope this won't be the last one. Thank you guys so much. I
Thank you.
enjoyed the conversation.